It's easy to start spinning on a healing or growth journey, to feel like you've stepped onto a merry-go-round and don't know how to get off. And in that place, we can spend more money, more time, more energy, more worry, and more stress trying to figure out what's happening. And we could be spending that energy on healing and growth instead, and on helping ourselves relax. And as someone who has been on a healing journey for 15 years, I can tell you that's happened to me more times than I care to remember. And so along that journey, I've always kept an eye out for frameworks or models that could help me make decisions, empowered decisions about what I should be doing now or what I need to be doing next, and what will support me to do that best. And so I want to introduce you to 4 models that can help you pinpoint where you're stuck in your healing journey, and each one gives you the tools to help you make an empowered decision to help you move forward with alignment and clarity. But first, I'm Samantha Mackay, coach at the Individual Process, and as you've heard, I help people get unstuck in their healing journey, to finally uncover why they feel like they're stalling, and to help them create alignment to move towards the life they yearn for. And so in this video, I'm going to give you just a quick introduction to each of the models. So if anything takes your fancy, you can jump into the other video to deep dive into it. The first model I want to introduce you to is the 4 bodies, and this is the one I've been using the longest. I discovered it in 2015, and it's become a core part of my healing journey since then. You'll see it in all of my programs, because I think we sometimes get stuck thinking of health and healing as just being in the physical domain, and that being the largest domain or body or being that needs healing. And yet what this model helps remind us is that the emotional, intellectual, and spiritual bodies are the same size and just as complex as the physical body. And because they're intangible, I think that's really easy to overlook. And yet this model helps remind us that they are just as complex, just as big. And also I think it's useful, this model, to help us identify what needs healing now, and to help us focus on how to best support each domain. I think it's important to only work on one body at a time, but also I think it's like a ladder. I think it's important that we create stability in the physical body to allow us to do really good work in the emotional body, to allow us to do good work in the intellectual or the mental space, and then to the spiritual. And I don't think that means that we do all the healing in the physical space before we can get to emotional, because I think it's like an onion, but it's like a stepping stone, and so once you've created some stability, you can go back and you can start building more. The decision that this helps you make is, which domain needs the most help right now, and do I need to create more stability in the domain underneath it before I deep dive into that? Now, the next model is personal projects, and this is inspired by Brian Little and his work on personality through the lens of personal projects. What this is really useful for is if you've decided what your healing project or goal is, and you find yourself stuck. So it's something you want to do, it'll help you heal, and yet for some reason you just are getting stuck somewhere in the process. It usually means you need to make a decision. And this model helps you figure out exactly where you're stuck and exactly what decision you need to make to get back into flow. It's simple, but I love it. Now, the next one is more of a recent discovery, Overcoming Trauma or Traumatic Stress by Bessel van der Kolk. But what I love about this is it helps us know when and why we need to do inner work. So one of the questions I'm constantly asking is, what is the right tool to support myself or another person at this stage of the healing and growth journey? And sometimes that's the Enneagram, and sometimes it's not. And I've been trying to figure out exactly when the Enneagram is most useful for someone. And this model, this framework, really answered that question really well. And as a shorthand, that's point 4. It's not necessarily where you start in your journey, because there are a couple of things that really help us to make the most of that inner work piece. And I also think this model is really useful because we don't always know if we're carrying trauma or traumatic stress, especially if that happened really early in life. And so I think this model has a lot of insight to offer as more of a sort of a macro journey about healing and growth, and what are some of the capabilities and skills we need, and some of the tools that work along the way. So whether you know you have trauma or not, I think this is a really useful model to understand. And then finally, the one I'm most excited about, I've been sitting on this for a little while, and I'm really looking forward to getting into it, is the Enneagram of Healing. And this relates to the work of Irv Givet, obviously inspired by George Gurdjieff, and the Process Enneagram. And the Process Enneagram is quite complicated. So I'm not going to get into that. But what I love about this is it gives you both a meta process for healing, all the steps in it, but also becomes a micro process. And so it's really flexible for helping us understand where we might be cycling in our healing journey, how we need to get out of it, and also the steps to get through. And if we're hitting particular barriers and not getting through them, it's great for helping identify what that is and what you can do to get through it. It really is a universal process for healing. And I just think it has so much to offer, but there's a lot to it. So that's going to be a longer video. But even if you only watch the first bit, it will be really helpful. I'm super excited about this one. So those are the 4 models, the 4 maps to healing that will help you pinpoint where you're stuck or stalling. And if you need any help figuring out where you're stuck or pinpointing yourself on any of those maps, get in touch. I'm happy to help.